because it's some funny business going on in the NFL. It's been going on for a long time, really. But what I'm talking about is this so-called Rooney Rule. So those of you that may not know what the Rooney Rule is, just not that well informed on it, I'll tell you what it's about. It's basically a affirmative action plan in the NFL. Essentially, every team has to interview a African American candidate for coach. The goal obviously was to get more black coaches and GMs. Obviously, we've seen a string of coaches not getting hired, more or less. We've seen a decline in the number of hires since that time. It seems like maybe a systematic issue. The NFL had a big discussion today to try to figure out what's the solution. Ultimately, they had some suggestions on the board, possible draft pick compensation, trying to figure out a way to fix this thing. Ultimately, they decided to table the discussions, putting it off for now. NFL trying to figure out a solution. My question is, how does the NFL fix this problem? Is there a solution? T, I'm going to start with you.
I think the NFL trying to institute this whole draft pick situation, which I believe was tabled, but I appreciate that they created the discussion, right? We wouldn't be having this conversation if they didn't propose it, at least, right? And I think they proposed it knowing that it would get tabled and knowing that it would generate conversation and raise awareness. And like you said, there's a huge issue going on right now. There's 4 minority head coaches. Redskins have one of them, which is surprising, and 2 minority GMs, and a 70% African American league. It just doesn't make sense. The numbers don't, mathematically, something has to give. I think it would make perfect sense to force guys to at least have to hire. Because check it out, if you grab a coach, right, a minority coach, because you have to, good or bad, you got him. If he loses, that draft pick doesn't matter. If he really can't coach, that draft pick does not matter at all. If he really can coach, then congratulations. It opens up the door for everybody else to say, maybe we've been thinking about this all wrong. This is a league where it's not just an issue at the top level. We see it trickle down to quarterbacks. Why doesn't Cam Newton have a job? We saw them do everything for Tebow to try to make this guy a quarterback and try to make him play. They made Terrell Pryor move the receiver. They wouldn't let Kaepernick back in the league. So the NFL has a long way to go. I thought it was a step in the right direction to just even propose it.
Yeah. I see what you mean there, man. I think that in the NFL, I'm not going to say they didn't try to do the right thing with this. I'm not going to tell you they didn't try to make an attempt with what they attempted to do. If you guys know about the 3rd round pick compensation, stuff like that, increasing the 3rd round pick compensation. But I think they kind of went about it wrong a little bit, right? Because I feel like when you reward a team for doing something like hiring a black coach, you're trying to admit that you have a problem without outright admitting that you had a problem. You remember when you were a kid and you didn't want to do something, let's say it was eat your vegetables, right? And your mom would say something like, well, hey, maybe if you eat your vegetables, you'll get this. I'll give you this if you eat your vegetables, right? You still hated eating those vegetables. You know what I mean? Like if it was like, hey, do this, clean your room before you can have fun. You still hated every moment of cleaning your room, although you went and did it. It's like now you just had to associate that with the boredom of your life, the worst thing at that moment of your life. And I feel like low key what the NFL is doing is telling these coaches, these upcoming coaches, that it's a problem to be black, And what we have to do, since you have this problem, is we have to give these teams a better draft pick just for them to take you. And I feel like the better message would be to start to shame these organizations that haven't done it yet. These organizations that have track records of not doing it, let's start shaming them. If the NFL is serious, admit that you have a problem and tell us which teams have been doing it. And once we do that, then you'll get these social justice cries, then you'll get these outrages. Then people will be able to directly point a finger, but it starts with shame. You got to shame these owners into some things. You've seen it in other sports, they shamed, Donald Sterling had something heinous happen. They shamed him out of his job once that happened, right? Put this type of stuff on that same scale and give it that same ridicule, and maybe we'll see some real action.
I think this is like a big dilemma in all sports. The NBA only has 8 black coaches. You're talking about a league that's predominantly black. You're talking about the NFL, with only 3 black coaches that is minority. I mean, I'm a Giants fan. Don't let the Andrew Luck jersey fool you guys. But like the last time that Giants had anybody in the head office as a black GM was Jerry was I believe Jerry, yeah, for the Giants, the GM. And like he took us to 2 Super Bowls. He constructed those Eli Manning teams and that defense. That was the coach was a white man was Coughlin. I mean, giving these teams a better third round pick for what? Like if no one's hiring, and you think a third round pick is going to do anything to justify just to make an attempt of hiring anybody? No. What they need to like players need to stand up for these coaches. Someone needs to go out there and be like, yeah, we need more black coaches. We need more diversity in these head offices to make a move. Because if the players don't speak up, then owners really don't care. Look how the owners stood up when Kaepernick went through and did this march. You know, and like the players, you had owners started listening. Like, okay, let's see, we could instead of doing the Kaepernick way, let's do it our way now. Like players need to come up and speak to get a handle on this problem.
You make a good point. Definitely make a good point. I don't know if it should be the players that should be coming up and speaking. And my question, it's gonna eventually, spin back, and I'm gonna ask y'all. But I think it's systematically in the NFL. We're talking about a system that I think it's a reflection upon the ownership, and it's a reflection upon the culture, deep-rooted culture within the NFL. With these owners, it's very comfortable for you to, and we're not in the position when you're hiring and making these decisions. You want to go with the coach. These guys are already identifying candidates. They want to work necessarily. It is what it is. Call spade a spade. They want to work with folks that look like them. They understand more or less. If there's more minority owners, I think you would see more minority choices within the staff. GMs, more black coaches. I think it's really a shame. There's guys like, without a doubt, shadow in my mind. I want to highlight a certain guy, Eric Bieniemy. Personally, I think if he was the head coach this year, I think he'd be in the better half of coaches in the NFL this year. And the fact that he's not a head coach is clearly, it's clearly proof that and there's a lot of organizations too. If you look at their history, and Bryce made the point. You look at their history. They've all they've done is hire white coaches. Like, are you telling me Eric Bieniemy's not a better coach than Joe Judge? Like, come on.
Look, I think you hit the nail on the head, man.
Hey, give my man a break. My man still hasn't even started the season. All right, give me a break.
That's kind of the point, right? That's kind of the point. Every time we get a white coach up there, it's give him a break. See what he does. A black coach, this guy can't get it done. Just look at the Lions. Ironically, it's the only team that's been fined for the Rooney Rule. You're trying to tell me that Matt Patricia gets to go 9-22-1, and Jim Caldwell's fired after 2 9-7 seasons? I mean, you can explain that a lot of ways, but pure numbers game. If winning is the business, you're not telling me 18 wins is not greater than 9 wins with Matt Patricia in 2 seasons.
I got a question though.
Yes, sir.
All right. So, do you think that the teams they go back and look at all the black coaches' track records, and they just be like, "Well, none of these guys are winning. Why should we even hire a black coach? Let's not just stick to the same formula. White head coach."
No, I don't think it's always that straightforward. I don't think racism is always that straightforward. And like Scruff was saying with the ownership, sometimes it's just an issue of comfort. You're comfortable around who you look like, who you relate to. Right, a lot of these black guys, the NFL makes more black billionaires than any other business in the world. And a lot of these guys come from underprivileged backgrounds. These billionaires are old money for the most part. And honestly, I don't see any other way to challenge the ownership, because that's what has to change, right? The ownership is kind of like a microcosm of what's going on in society. You got a nation built on minorities, and then the people at the top, the white people, basically saying, all right, these guys are the issues. The same minorities that built this situation are the issues. The players are doing all the work. Players are making all the money. Owners are reaping all the benefits. And I think the draft picks was a perfect way to challenge them. Hey, because if we hire that black coach and my team is winning, then maybe that ownership's fan base complains. Like, if we stop hiring Matt Rules and these hotshot rookie coaches from college that come in and get smashed every year. Maybe we should give a offensive coordinator in Kansas City that's proven he can get it done. Maybe we give him a shot.
That's a good point, man. That's a good point. It's almost unbelievable that Eric Bieniemy didn't get his shot, man. Because you're talking about this guy's heading probably the best offense we've seen in since Peyton and the Broncos. I mean, and that's unbelievable, man. I mean, like that's tough. And I'm pretty sure if his name was
Shanahan, McVay,
what else? Insert name here. Something, yeah, he would be up there.
Gruden.
Hey, Owski. Anything ending in Owski?
It's a fact.
Insert.
It's a fact. It's a big fact.